Do we all come up with 36.336 degrees for angle A? All right, again, you can see my setup here. Sine of A over 4 is equal to the sine of angle C, which is what I just found, divided by 6. So remember, you have to take the inverse sine of that fraction because you're solving for that angle. If you're having issues, you think you're having the setup correct, but it's something you're doing in the calculator, when you hit your inverse sine, guys, remember you do have that fraction bar on the calculators. Maybe some of you are having issues with the fraction bar. Remember, if you go to alpha y equals, the first option will actually give you that fraction bar. So if that helps you in terms of typing things in the calculator, use that fraction bar instead of the division sign. All right, so any questions on how I found angle A? Well, now that I know C and I know A, I can find angle B by doing what? Adding A and C together and subtracting it from what? 180. So 180 minus 117.2796 minus 36.336. So then angle B is going to be equal to 26.3844 degrees. So any questions, guys, if you're given the side, 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 or side angle, side, how you use law, like I said, the law of sine formula is easier to use. So that's why once you find that one piece using law of cosines in either form, you can then switch over to law of sines, as long as you take care of that obtuse angle issue. All right, so let's take a look at the next page. So you're not solving these. Like I said, on your quiz or midterm, I'm not going to tell you this is a law of sine or law of cosine problem to get started. So you're not solving these triangles. What I want you to do is, with the information given, decide if it's a side angle side or side, 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 etc., and tell me how you would start the problem, whether it would be a law of sine or law of cosine. So for example, draw a picture. In number 3, I'm giving you two sides and an angle. So they're telling me angle B is 120 degrees, side A is 4, side C is 1. So what scenario do I have with this particular setup? Is it an angle, side, side? What do I have? Side, angle, side. So if it's a side, angle, side, how would you start it? Would it be a law of sine or would it be a law of cosine? Law of cosine. So again, I don't want you to solve it. I just want you to recognize how you would start it. Because again, on your quiz and test, I'm not going to tell you whether it starts as a law of sine, law of cosine. All right, so you guys go ahead and do the next 5 for me. Tell me whether it's going to be a law of sine or law of cosine problem. Okay, so here's hopefully what you came up with for number 4, angle, side, angle, so you can start this by law of sines. Number 5 is side, side, angle, so that would be another law of sines. Number 6, angle, side, angle would be a law of sine. Or, what does 55 plus 35 add up to be? 90. So what does angle C have to be? Angle C has to be a what? 90-degree angle. You could go back to your baby trig, I call it your SOHCAHTOA. So if you recognized it, you could have done this triangle one of 2 ways. You could have done the law of sines, or if you recognized that the other angle was 90 degrees, you could have just done your SOHCAHTOA. 7 is pretty obvious. This was a side, 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 so you'd start it by using your law of cosines. And then, again, like I mentioned in number 8, you're given 3 angles, so you don't have enough information. You cannot solve just an angle, angle, angle. Okay? So any questions? So now that you're moving forward, you have to make sure you're on the lookout. Are you going to start this as a law of sine versus a law of cosine problem? All right, so now your favorite, some word problems. 2 trains leave a station on different tracks. The tracks make an angle of 125 degrees with the station as the vertex. So again, I'm going to just go ahead and set up. Here's my 2 tracks. One angle, the angle that's formed between the 2 tracks is 125 degrees. The first train travels at an average speed of 100 kilometers per hour. So I'm going to call that train A. Train A is traveling 100 kilometers per hour. And the second train is traveling at an average speed of 65 kilometers per hour. So I'll call that train B. How far apart are the trains after 2 hours? So after 2 hours, if train A is traveling 100 kilometers per hour, how far has he gone after 2 hours? After 2 hours, he's traveled what? 200. So I know that train A then is 200 kilometers from the station, so I'm going to call that side A. Train B is traveling 65 kilometers per hour. So after 2 hours, how far has he gone? If he's traveled 2 hours, he's gone how far? 130. So then I know train B is 130 kilometers from the station. And I want to know how far away. So again, this is going to be angle A, this is going to be angle B, and then again, angle C is going to be right here. So I'm solving for C. So any questions, always draw a picture if it's not given to you. So any questions on how I've set up this particular diagram? So since I have a triangle, what scenario do I have? I have two sides and an included angle. So this is a what? Side, angle, side scenario. So how am I going to start solving this? I'm going to start solving this by using what law? Law of sines or law of cosines? Law of cosines. Okay? And again, with law of cosines, if it's a side, angle, side, you have to solve for the side opposite that given angle. So I'm going to solve for C. So then C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. Here's my law of cosine formula, minus 2AB times the cosine of C. Again, you don't have to memorize the formulas. They'll be given to you. Just make sure you know how to use them. So C squared is equal to 200 squared plus 130 squared minus 2 times 200 times 130 times the cosine of 125 degrees. So again, I'm just going to type this in my calculator. Where's my calculator? So 200 squared plus 130 squared minus 2 times 200 times 130 times the cosine of 125. So I end up with C squared is equal to 86,725.97469. So don't forget you need to take the square root of that number, so it's already in your calculator, so hit your second square root. Hit that second answer, that second negative sign. So the trains are going to be 294.493 kilometers away from each other. Okay. So any questions on problem number 9? Okay. Let's take a look at another one. The picture's given to you at least. So we have a 100-foot tall antenna tower. It's placed on a hillside that makes an angle of 12 degrees with the horizontal. So AB is my tower, so I'm going to label that as my 100. It's forming, my horizontal is this dashed horizontal line, so here is my 12 degrees it's making with the horizontal. So any questions so far on how I've labeled the picture? It is to be anchored by 2 cables from the top of the tower to points 85 feet uphill and 95 feet downhill from the base. So the base of my tower is B. So then BD is my 85, CB is my 95. How much cable is needed? So again, B and K is what I'm solving for. So if I want to know how much cable in total is needed, I have to find B, find K, and then what am I going to have to do with those two values? I'm going to eventually have to do what? Add them together. Then I add them together. Now, the issue is I know, in triangle ABD, I know two sides, but I do not know an angle. However, this is where you're going to look at this right triangle right down here. This is 90 degrees, this is 12 degrees. Can I find this angle right in here in the right triangle? Yes, because 90 plus 12 is 102, and then when I subtract that from 180, that makes this angle here 78 degrees. Well, then what does that make? Going back to some properties of geometry, what happens with these vertical angles? They are what to each other? They are congruent. So if this angle here is 78, this angle here is 78 degrees. So looking at triangle ABD, I know two sides and an angle. This is a side angle side scenario, isn't it? So if I look at triangle CBA, what's the relationship between 78 degrees and this angle right here? They are what to each other? They're supplementary? Supplementary. So what is this angle right here going to have to be? This angle is going to have to be 102. And I have another side angle side. So that I can find side B. So B squared is going to be equal to A squared plus C squared minus 2AC times the cosine of angle B using your law of cosine formula. So B squared is going to be equal to 100 squared plus 95 squared minus 2 times 100 times 95 times the cosine of 108 degrees. Oh, yeah, 102. Thank you. That make a big difference if I can read my own writing. Thank you. Okay. So go ahead and now solve for side B for me. And hopefully we came up with 151.576 for side B. Okay? Any questions? Again, this is what the calculator setup looks like. Again, don't forget to take the square root of that answer. Okay? Any questions on that? So now remember, we have another triangle to solve for. We now have to solve for this K value. Again, if you want to change that K to a B to keep yourself straight in the formula, but again, I'm going to have my K squared is equal to 100 squared plus 85 squared, the two sides that I know, minus 2 times 100 times 85 times the cosine of the angle opposite the side I'm trying to find. So you guys go ahead and find K and then answer the question for me, because the question's asking for the total amount of cable. So hopefully you got, guys, as a final answer, 268.582 feet. So again, you should end up with side K to be 117.006. Okay? Again, guys, don't forget, after you type in this 100 squared plus 85 squared, you've got to take the square root of that number. And that's where I got the 117.006. Okay? That'll do it. Be careful, guys, when you're typing these stuff in your calculators. Questions, guys, on that one?
I didn't get it on my calculator.
Okay, I'll take a look at how you typed it in. Because I have what you should have typed in right there. That's what you should have typed in.
That's what I typed in.
All right. And you should have gotten this as your answer.
No.
Okay, so obviously, like I said, there's a mistake in what you typed in. I'll take a look at it. Okay, last question here. Going back to some geometry, you have a diagonal of a parallelogram. Oh boy, remember parallelograms from geometry.
Okay, is the calculator supposed to be radius or
Degrees.
Okay.
So the diagonal of a parallelogram is 6 centimeters long, and the other one is 13 centimeters long. They form an angle of 42 degrees with each other. Doesn't matter where you put the 42 degrees. how long are the sides of the parallelogram? So this goes back to remembering the properties of parallelograms. What happens with the diagonals of a parallelogram? Do you remember? They do something with each other. Yes, they do. They bisect each other. What does bisect mean? Yep. They bisect. Okay? So if one diagonal, ladies and gentlemen, is 6 centimeters, then I know this will have to be 3, this will have to be 3. If the other diagonal is 13 centimeters long, that means this part here will be 6.5. This side here will be 6.5. Now again, remembering vertical angles are congruent, so if this angle is 42, I know this one's 42. What's that other angle going to have to be? That other angle is going to have to be supplementary to 42 degrees, isn't it? So what's this other interior angle going to be? It's going to have to be 138. So I want to solve for, I'll call this side B, this side A. Remember, you don't have to solve for all 4 sides, because what do you know about the sides in a parallelogram? The sides opposite each other are what? Congruent. Okay? See how much you remember from geometry. So look at side B, ladies and gentlemen. I have drawn, we have an interior triangle right here. We have side, angle, side. So how can I solve for B? I can use my law of cosines. So B squared is going to have to be equal to 3 squared plus 6.5 squared minus 2 times 3 times 6.5 times the cosine of 138 degrees. To find the other side, A squared will have to be equal to 6.5 squared plus 3 squared minus 2 times 3 times 6.5, but I'm going to take the cosine of 42 degrees. So now you guys go ahead and finish that and solve for side A and side B for me in the parallelogram. So ladies and gentlemen, when you're finished, you should end up with one side to be 8.957 centimeters and the other one to be 4.719. All right? If you're having issues, guys, you think you're typing this in the calculator, I'll be more than happy the next few minutes to come around and help you with the calculator stuff. Don't figure out that it's quiz day or midterm day that you have no idea how to plug this stuff into your calculator. You're having calculators. Get them resolved now. All right, so that's it for law of cosines.